All right, so as I remember, it's in Berossus's history of his people, the Babylonians. It may have been in one of the Sumerian king lists, but there were two parallel lines. There was a list of kings, and then there's a list of 10 kings, suspiciously, until their flood. And then there's a parallel list of seven Apkallu. The Apkallu begin with the first Apkallu was Oannes. Of course, that's a Greek transliteration of probably Uan or something like that. These were men of wisdom, and they were associated with fish. And I haven't really delved into, and it's probably vague. Even if I did delve into it, it's probably vague. But they're associated with fish. They have aspects of fish in their body, and they're associated with wisdom. They're associated with bestowing wisdom and knowledge and expertise onto mankind. Now, notice in Genesis 5 and I think Genesis 4, you have these 10 until that flood. The same in the Babylonian Babylonian history, in Berossus's text. You have this 10, and then if you know Genesis well, you know that Eve beget two lineages. There's one lineage that's Seth. That's the second one there. And note it, as Mel Klein points out in his book online, she says, I will name him Seth because Elohim has given me a seed. Notice the context. Elohim has given me a seed. Earlier, when she was begetting Cain and Abel, she says, I will name him Cain. Cain being a word related in Hebrew to acquiring. I will name him Cain because I have acquired a man-child with Yud He Vav He. It's not from, it's with. So notice Cain, the birth of the naming of Cain has the connection to Yud He Vav He, and notice afterwards that the naming of Seth has an association with Elohim. So already you have Elohim and Yud He Vav He. In the Yud He Vav He column, you have Cain. You have a lineage of seven. Cain ending in Tubal Cain, and then in the Elohim lineage, you have these 10. So you have a listing of 10, and then parallel you have you would have a parallel of 7. And again, I believe it's Berossus that mentions this as well. If not, it's at least mentioned in the Sumerian king lists. You have 7 Apkallu who bestowed wisdom upon mankind, and they're associated with a certain king ruling at a certain time. 10 kings, 7 Apkallu, and here you have 10 ones beginning with Adam, and you have 6 descendants of Cain, counting Cain being the first one, or is it Adam being the first one? Anyway, I think it's Adam being number 1, and then Cain is number 2. Anyway, you have 7 in that list, and those are the ones associated with craftsmanship. And in some of the writings, like the Watchers, when there are ancient texts that are, I venture to say, fan fiction off of this text, off of Genesis, they delve more into these 7 dealing in all sorts of sciences, like I think it mentions witchcraft. It's like meteorology and metallurgy and all these different sciences. That's a great parallel, or a great it's very reminiscent of the Babylonian storyline, and that jives with Russell Gamirkin's suspicion, and he's written some books that the Pentateuch, the five books of Moses, were probably written by a certain group of people in the library, using the Library of Alexandria and its sources, probably Manetho and probably Berosus's, those priests' two histories, of Egypt and Babylon, and implanting Berosus's story of the 10 here with the 7 bestowing knowledge onto the story they had in mind, which is the five books of Moses, and completely rewriting earlier Israelite culture. It's his suspicion that these were ones influenced by the writings of Plato, and that they went to Alexandria. They wanted to write a history, basically invent a new history of Israel. And because you notice distinct differences between what's in the Bible, what's in the five books of Moses, and what's been gleaned from archaeology, like direct contradictions. I agree. That looks like that's what happened. Anyway, so you have 7 and 10 there, and the seventh king is Enmenduranki, which En means in Babylonian or Akkadian, which would be the major language. It comes from the city of Akkad within the Babylonian kingdom. In Akkadian, En means Lord. I forget what, I think Meh refers to laws, or like the law, as in the laws that govern things. The name Enmenduranki, if I remember correctly, it's something close to the Lord of the laws of heaven and earth. And then during that time, that's when you have the flood. Now, there's another name associated with the figure during the flood, and that's Ziusudra, sometimes written as Zixuthros, which would be the Greek transliteration of Ziusudra. And then I forget who the Apkallu was, who was about that time. So personally, I think that that's who the Watchers were, when it refers to the sons of, the sons of Elohim mating with the daughters of the Adam. I don't think they were aliens from outer space and so forth. I think it's these two lineages mating and like combining together, they're mating. You have the sons of Elohim, which would be that Elohim lineage. That would be Seth, Enosh, and so forth. And then you have, I'm guessing the other group would be Cain, the 7, Cain, all the way down to Tubal-Cain, and that the men from one group mated with the women from the other group. That's what I suspect was actually going on. It's not angels or whatever. Okay, so getting back to this, let me see. You have extraordinary ages, just like you have extraordinary ages. If you think these ages are high, you should see the ones in the king list. And those aren't ages. Those are reigns, number of years in the reign of. It was a simple king list. It mentions the king, and then it mentions 8 Shar, written in Greek as Saros, and that's a number meaning 3,600. So you have like multiples, 8 times 3,600, which would be an incredibly long time. So you wind up, if you add up this length all the way to the flood, which as you would do in the Babylonian king list, you get a flood or a time span in here until the flood of like 432,000 years. I'll get to this in a moment. We add up the birth, the ages when each generational character gave birth to a child. You add those up. I'll get into that. That's how you get the year of the flood. And it's different depending on whether you're talking about the Masoretic version or the Samaritan version or the two Septuagint versions. And then Josephus was a historian, a Jewish historian who was pro-Roman, who was practically part of Roman propaganda, writing in his book The Antiquities of the Jews. And his numbers, I think, come close to the, or match the, I shouldn't say come close, they match in most respects the Samaritan Pentateuch. But anyway, that's how you get the year of the flood. And I wrote down somewhere the different years of the flood. I don't have it here. But again, it depends on which version you're talking about. It's a totally different year. One, if I remember correctly, the Samaritan Pentateuch has the flood occurring in 1307. The Masoretic text has it as 1656. And the Septuagint has it, or you look at either version of the Septuagint, it's around 22. Oh, one of the Septuagint versions has it as 2242. The other one has it as 2262. So there's a 20-year difference between there. Okay, so I've explained that. Altogether, 26 generations, which you can see here. And there are three numbers. Now, I mentioned that there are three numbers. There's a number referring to the age when the child was born, and then there's another number referring to the number of years after birth, and then a third number referring to the whole total lifespan. In this case, I just used the total lifespan because I didn't have enough room, and I was just comparing the three different versions here. Three of the versions here. But after the flood, it changes. It doesn't give all three numbers. It merely gives the birth year, the age when the child was born, and then it gives either the total lifespan. I don't think it gives the total lifespan. It gives either the total lifespan or the number of years after, and then you deduce the missing number from that. I don't know why that is, but it's very interesting. It's almost, you could speculate maybe the writer was toying or calling attention to it for some reason. All right, so talked about Berosus. 86,400 weeks. I read an article where there is a conversion between the Babylonian 432,000 years and the Masoretic 1656 years. It was that's where it's almost mystical how it comes about. It comes to 86,400 weeks, and as I recall, if you multiply 86,400 by 7, you get 432,000. And if you do something the 86,400, you get the number of years in 1600. The number of weeks or the number of days in 16,500 or 1656 years. And then it's also been pointed out that 86,400, I guess if you multiply that, it comes to 1656. I haven't done the math, and it shouldn't come out like that, but somebody pointed that out. All right. Okay, this next part should be more, it should be easier to explain. All right, this is one of my favorite parts. It's very easy to explain. Hold on just... Oh, no, it's right here. Okay, I put it right in my notes right here so I wouldn't forget. Okay, so you remember I was talking about sometime down the lineage chart, you going through linearly. You reach the flood, and then after the flood, you get these 9, not 10, but 9 ones after that, and then the 10th one is Abraham. It's interesting that Noah, who's the 10th, has 3 sons, one of whom is Shem, and then it goes down, and then the 19th is Terah, and then the 20th is Abram, and if I remember correctly, there are 2 sons there too. I forget who the other sons are. And then you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Okay, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Okay, in that direct line. So here's a fascinating thing. Here is a bit of math, easy math. You have, see, Abe, and then skip the Sarah for a moment. Abe, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. You see those formulae? Abe's total lifespan is 175. That's equal to 7 times 5 squared. Isaac lived to 180. That's 5 times 6 squared. Jacob lived to 147. That's 3 times 7 squared. So you see the pattern of 7, 5, 3, and then the other column is 5 squared, 6 squared, and 7 squared. And then notice Joseph's age, total lifespan of 110. That's 5 squared plus 5 squared plus 6 squared plus 7 squared. Those are the ones in that other column, 5 squared, 6 squared, and 7 squared. Now, jumping ahead a bit, okay, you see down here this 12,600, and I wrote confirmed because I actually added up all those ages. That's all these lifespans added up. Add to 12,000 with 120 for Moses, all add up to 12,600. There's a suspicion that by Jeremy Northcote, who famously wrote an article finding patterns in here, that the original lineage, in whatever form it was, did not have, after Jacob, did not have Levi, Kohath, Amram, and Moses. It went from Jacob to Joseph. And that makes sense if you consider that Joseph, that the book of Genesis ends with Joseph. I don't know how it would take into account Moses, because Moses exists from Exodus onward to the end of Deuteronomy. But it would explain why you have this math here, and why Joseph seems to have like a summation or a culmination of those 3 earlier ages. That mathematical pattern fits with Joseph as a culmination point. Why not with like Levi, or somebody who is a direct, in this lineage is a direct descendant, is brother of Joseph, but like it follows from Levi all the way to Moses. It doesn't follow through Joseph all the way to Moses. That's kind of weird. But if you take, as Jeremy Northcote pointed out, if you follow the Levi lineage as a son of Jacob, and not, if you follow the Joseph lineage as opposed to Levi, if you replace Levi with Joseph, and then you therefore ignore Kohath, the succeeding generations, Kohath, Amram, and Moses, you add up all the ones to Jacob, and then you add 110 to that, you get an even 11,999, or 12,000, and 12 being a symbolic number, you get 12 tribes, 12 this, 12 that, 12 zodiac signs, and so forth. That may have been intentional. That may have been the original number, but perhaps somewhere along the line, somebody took out Joseph and instead replaced him with Levi and gave these ages until Moses. And you would get 12,600 for total lifespans added up. Now, 12,600, somebody pointed out, that's really 1260 times 10 if you ignore days and years and so forth, you just take the number, that's 1260 times 10. 1260 days equals 42 months. Now, during the Exodus trip, there are 42 points of stopping, or 42 stages or steps in their journey from Exodus to the Promised Land. There may be a link there. And there's a line in Daniel, the text of Daniel, the prophet, and in Revelations to the phrase time and times and a half. And I forget exactly how. So time would refer to a certain number, and then times would be a double of that number, and then half would be half that number. And that would also equal 1260. All right. I want to also mention something in terms of, in terms of the first 10 here. I don't have it here, but you can see the names. I noticed a few patterns. Adam lived 800 years after begetting Seth. And then for Jared, he lived, which is number 6, he lives 800 years after begetting Enoch. Now, those are the only times that 800 appear in the number of years after. Anywhere throughout it. It's anywhere through Genesis 5. It's the only time 800 appears. And I see 10, and I see almost like a first group of 5 beginning with 800, and number 6, maybe a second group of 5 beginning with 800. It's just suspicious that it starts with somebody who lives 800 years after begetting a child, and then the next group of 5, or the 6th one, also lives 800 years after begetting someone. Another thing stands out, that Enoch lives 365 years. Is that a reference to the 365 days in a year? I don't know. Now, I confirm this. You can't see it in these ages, but go to the Masoretic text. You will see that if you add up the ages when they beget someone, that when you get to Enoch, is it either the begetting ages or these ages here? I think it's the begetting ages. You reach a number that's equivalent to 7 times 7 times 120 minus 1. And the article I was reading also says that later on you reach a number that's equivalent to, doing that same summation, you reach 7 times 7 times 120 minus 13. So you have two numbers. I was able to confirm that first number, 7 times 7 times 120 minus 1, but not the 7 times 7 times 120 minus 13. 13 being an interesting number. It's associated with, 13 was 1 more than 12. I don't know. Maybe that's too much speculation, but there's a verse in Genesis 6 where I think it's Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Yes, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh says, I forget the exact phrase, but it's, my spirit shall not contend with the Adam. Their days will be 120. Now, is that phrase of 120 referring to this 7 times 7 times 120 minus 1? It's interesting that it occurs right at Enoch. And in the text, you notice that Enoch is the only one that's not mentioned as dying. All the other ones, and it says and the number of years after begetting so and so or something, and they were this age, and they died, and the person dies. However, with Enoch, it says he lived 365 years and then beget Methuselah, and then the number of years after begetting Methuselah were 300, and altogether the days of his life were 365, and he walked with Elohim, or he walked with the Elohim. That's the only time it appears. And of course, 365 being similar to the sun. All right, I'm going to cut off because I want to review my notes. Hold on.